Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity today. Keeping your systems safe is super important as businesses rely more and more on digital systems, and that's where turnkey cybersecurity can really help.
Yeah, we're here to help small businesses just like yours make sure they're safe and sound in this crazy world of cybersecurity. And we offer a whole suite of services specifically tailored for you. So that's ensuring CMMC compliance and doing penetration testing. We also run vulnerability scans, and we can help you develop a comprehensive risk assessment.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We handle incident response, should the unfortunate happen, and we guide you through migrations like GCC. We just want to make sure your transitions are smooth and that you're secure.
It's all about peace of mind, right? You focus on what you do best, running your business, and we'll make sure that your digital world is safe and sound.
Okay, so let's jump into some of the latest cybersecurity news. We found some pretty interesting stories over the last few weeks, and we're going to break them down for you.
All right, let's get into it.
First up, let's talk about North Korea. Remember those fake cryptocurrency schemes we talked about a while back?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it seems they've stepped up their game. And it's not just about stealing crypto anymore.
Yeah, this new tactic is way more insidious. They're basically placing North Korean IT workers in companies almost like sleeper agents. And these workers then steal corporate secrets, and they use that stolen information to extort the business.
Wow, that's scary stuff. So how can companies protect themselves from something like that? I mean, is running a standard background check even enough anymore?
Well, background checks are definitely important, but yeah, you're right. They might not be enough in this case. It really highlights the need to go above and beyond, right? We need to be digging deeper, verifying credentials from multiple sources, and maybe even implementing tighter security protocols for employees that are handling that sensitive data.
Really just got to be careful
Oh, yeah,
because the threat actors are constantly adapting.
or all the time.
What worked yesterday might not cut it today.
Exactly.
Okay, switching gears a bit, let's talk about artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT. This one might not be a huge surprise. Hackers are now using ChatGPT to write malware.
Oh, wow.
And even OpenAI themselves have confirmed this. So what are your thoughts on this?
It's not surprising, but it is significant. The fact that AI can be used to generate malicious code so easily really changes the game. Attackers can create custom phishing emails at a massive scale, making them even harder to detect.
It really is unsettling. It feels like you can't even trust what you're seeing online anymore. So how do we even begin to adapt our defenses against these AI-powered threats?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And there's no easy answer. It's going to require a multifaceted approach. We need better training for employees to recognize these sophisticated attacks, investing in advanced threat detection tools. And of course, we've got to continue to push for responsible AI development to minimize the potential for misuse.
It's a whole new world of threats we're facing. Speaking of threats, let's talk about a recent incident with Microsoft. Apparently, they lost crucial security logs for almost a month due to a software bug. And this affected some pretty major services, Entra and Sentinel. What are the implications of something like that?
This incident is a big reminder that even the tech giants, the companies that we rely on for security, they aren't immune to vulnerabilities. And security logs are like the bread and butter of incident response. They help us understand what happened, how it happened, and who might be responsible.
So losing them, even for a short period of time, could have some pretty serious consequences.
Absolutely. Imagine like a scenario where an attacker gains unauthorized access to your systems during that time when the logs aren't being recorded. You might not even know you were breached until it was too late. That's why having diverse security measures and not solely relying on one provider is so important.
So you're saying even if we trust a company like Microsoft, we shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket?
Right.
We need to diversify our security measures to kind of mitigate the risk of something like this happening.
Exactly. Spreading that risk across multiple providers means that if one system fails, you have others in place to catch potential threats.
That's great advice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something called the patch gap. So apparently hackers were able to quickly exploit a high-severity vulnerability in Veeam software, even though a patch was available. This raises the question, why weren't companies patching their systems?
Well, this is a classic example of the constant race between security patches and exploits. Patching is crucial, but it's not always instantaneous. It takes time for companies to test patches, ensure compatibility with their systems, and schedule downtime for implementation. And in the meantime, hackers are actively looking for systems that haven't been patched yet.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners? What can they do to protect themselves?
Proactive vulnerability management is key. So that means having a process in place to identify, assess, and prioritize vulnerabilities as they emerge. It also means having a robust incident response plan so that if a vulnerability is exploited, you can contain the damage and recover.
So you're saying it's not enough to just rely on patches?
Yeah,
We need to be prepared for those moments when vulnerabilities are exploited.
exactly.
Speaking of vulnerabilities, this next story takes things to a whole new level. It turns out that security researchers have found ways to attack Intel and AMD's secure enclave processors. These were previously considered highly secure.
Right.
This is a bit unsettling, to say the least.
It is unsettling. Secure enclaves are like those little digital vaults inside your processor that are designed to protect sensitive data, like encryption keys and biometric information. The fact that researchers have found ways to crack these so-called vaults is a major development.
Okay, I'll admit, I'm a little lost here. How did they even discover these vulnerabilities? It sounds incredibly complex.
It is complex. The takeaway here is this. Hardware vulnerabilities are a real and evolving threat. We can't just focus on software security. You have to consider the entire system, right down to the chips themselves.
That makes sense. We need to be thinking about security at every level. And speaking of holistic approaches, Tenable recently released a report with some pretty sobering findings. They found that 74% of organizations have publicly exposed data, and it's often linked to the rush towards cloud adoption. This definitely ties back to what you were saying earlier about diversifying security measures, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. This report really underscores the dangers of misconfigured cloud storage and unused access keys. Cloud services are powerful, but they also introduce new complexities to managing security. And it's easy to make mistakes, and those mistakes can have huge security implications.
So even if I'm not migrating to the cloud anytime soon, this is still relevant, right?
Definitely.
I mean, I still need to be thinking about securing my systems.
Absolutely. The key takeaway here is about securing any publicly accessible system, whether it's in the cloud or on your own servers. You need to be vigilant about configurations, access controls, and just anything that could potentially expose sensitive data.
Got it. Okay, let's move on to a topic that I find particularly fascinating. It's the gap between perception and reality when it comes to cybersecurity.
Hmm.
A recent survey by MXD found that businesses are overly confident in their cybersecurity posture, while at the same time they lack comprehensive policies and training. Why do you think this disconnect exists? Is it just wishful thinking?
I think it's a combination of factors. Cybersecurity can be complex and overwhelming, and it's easy to underestimate the risks, especially if you haven't experienced a major cyber attack firsthand. You might think it won't happen to me, but the reality is cyber attacks are becoming more common and more sophisticated.
So what can be done to bridge this gap between perception and reality? How do we get businesses to take cybersecurity more seriously?
Regulation can play a role in pushing for better practices, but ultimately it comes down to self-awareness. Businesses need to honestly assess their cybersecurity posture and be willing to seek external expertise to gain an objective view.
So you're saying like maybe conducting penetration testing, getting vulnerability assessments, or even just having a conversation with the cybersecurity professional to identify potential weaknesses could be a good first step.
Exactly. The more you know about your vulnerabilities, the better equipped you are to defend against them.
That's great advice. Okay, let's talk about 23andDan. Their recent financial troubles have raised some serious concerns about the fate of their vast DNA database. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, what's concerning is their flexible privacy policy. It essentially allows them to sell your data in the event of a sale or merger.
Wait, so you're saying that if 23andGo goes bankrupt or gets acquired, my genetic data could end up in the hands of another company? That's a bit alarming.
It is alarming. This situation really highlights the broader issue of data privacy. We need to be mindful of the data we share and understand the potential consequences. It's so easy to just click agree without reading those privacy policies, but we need to start being more vigilant about our data.
Absolutely. We need to be asking ourselves, what data are we sharing? Who has access to it? And what could they potentially do with it?
Exactly. Those are the right questions to be asking. And unfortunately, in the case of 23andMe, the answers might not be so reassuring.
Okay, well, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have. I think the main takeaway is that the cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving. Threat actors are becoming more sophisticated. We're seeing new threats emerge, like AI-powered attacks, and even the companies we rely on for security are vulnerable.
Right, and we can't afford to be complacent.
Nope.
We need to stay informed about the latest threats, and we need to adapt our security practices. We also discussed the importance of proactive vulnerability management, incident response planning, and diversifying your security measures.
Right.
And let's not forget that crucial point about bridging the gap between perception and reality when it comes to cybersecurity. We need to honestly assess our security posture and not overestimate our capabilities.
For sure.
And finally, the situation with 23MA serves as a stark reminder that data privacy is paramount. We need to be mindful of the data we share, and we need to understand the potential risks.
Absolutely.
All great points. We'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. Let's continue our exploration into the cybersecurity landscape.
All right, so we've talked about some pretty unsettling trends in cybersecurity, from nation-state actors to AI-powered malware.
Mm.
Let's kind of shift our focus to something a bit more personal, our own online habits and the data that we share. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think people are generally aware of the risks associated with sharing their data online?
It's a great question. It's one that a lot of people are grappling with. On the one hand, we have these amazing online services that offer convenience, entertainment, and connection. But on the other hand, these services often come at a cost to our privacy.
It's that classic trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Convenience versus privacy.
Mm.
And it seems like we're increasingly willing to just sacrifice privacy for the sake of convenience.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And it's not necessarily that people don't care about their privacy. It's more that they feel powerless. They
Yeah.
see these lengthy privacy policies. They know their data is being collected, but they don't really understand what that means, how it could potentially be used against them.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming. Like, where do you even begin to take control of your data?
It starts with awareness. We need to be mindful of the information that we're sharing online. So think about the websites you visit, the apps that you use, the forms that you fill out. Are you comfortable with those companies having access to that information? If not, maybe it's time to reconsider using those services or adjust your privacy settings.
It's just about being more conscious of our digital footprint.
Precisely. And it's not just about protecting our personal information. It's about our businesses, our finances, and even our reputations. In today's digital world, data is a valuable commodity, and it's being collected, it's being analyzed, and it's being exploited in ways that most people just don't realize.
And you've kind of touched upon something really important here, the idea that our data is valuable. And if
Yeah.
it's valuable to companies, it's valuable to cybercriminals as well, right?
Absolutely. Cybercriminals are always looking for ways to monetize stolen data. They can use it for identity theft, financial fraud, blackmail, you name it.
So it's not just about some faceless corporation tracking my online activity. It's about real people with malicious intent trying to steal my identity and my money.
Exactly. And the more data we share online, the more ammunition we're giving these criminals.
Okay, so let's talk about some practical steps that individuals and businesses can take to protect their data. What are some of the basics?
Well, strong passwords are a must. And I'm not just talking about using a combination of letters and numbers. We're talking about unique, complex passwords for every account. And consider using a password manager to help you generate and store those passwords securely.
Yeah, a password manager is a great idea.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off of trying to remember all those complex passwords. What else?
Enable two-factor authentication wherever possible. This adds that extra layer of security by requiring you to enter a code from your phone or your email in addition to your password. Makes it much harder for those hackers to gain access to your accounts.
Yeah, two-factor authentication can be a little bit of a hassle, but it's definitely worth the extra effort for the added security.
For sure. And here's another simple but important tip. Be wary of phishing emails and suspicious links. Don't click on anything that seems too good to be true or that comes from an unknown sender. Hackers are getting really good at their phishing attacks, so always double-check the sender's address and be skeptical of any requests for personal information.
Phishing emails are so tricky because they often look legitimate.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall for them if you're not careful.
Right. Here's another important point. Keep your software updated. Software updates often include security patches that fix known vulnerabilities. So by keeping your operating system, your applications, your antivirus software up to date, you're making it much harder for those hackers to exploit those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's easy to just ignore those update notifications,
hmm
but they really are important for your security.
They are. And finally, I would recommend using a reputable antivirus program and keep it up to date. A good antivirus program will help protect your computer from malware, viruses, and other online threats.
So we've got strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being wary of phishing emails, keeping software updated, using a good antivirus program. Those are all great practical tips. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Just remember, cybersecurity is an ongoing journey. It's not a destination. The threat landscape is constantly evolving, so it's super important to stay informed, be proactive, and take steps to protect yourself and your business.
Great advice. Okay, let's shift gears again and talk about something that's been in the news a lot lately, which is the increasing use of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, we talked about how AI can be used to create these more sophisticated attacks, but it can also be used to enhance our defenses.
Exactly. It's like a high-stakes game of chess. Both sides are using AI to try and outmaneuver each other.
So how is AI being used to improve cybersecurity? Give us some examples.
Well, one area where AI is really having a big impact is threat detection. AI-powered security tools can analyze massive amounts of data from various sources, looking for those patterns and anomalies that might indicate a cyber attack. And they can identify threats much faster and more accurately than humans can, which allows security teams to respond more quickly and effectively.
So it's like having an extra set of eyes constantly scanning for threats that we might miss.
That's a good analogy. AI can also be used to automate many of the tedious and time-consuming tasks that are involved in cybersecurity, like vulnerability scanning and patch management. This frees up security professionals to focus on more strategic tasks like threat hunting and incident response.
That makes sense. Automation can help us streamline our security processes and just make them more efficient. What are some other areas where AI is being used?
AI is also being used to improve phishing detection. AI-powered tools can analyze emails for those telltale signs of phishing, like suspicious links, misspellings, grammatical errors. They can also learn to recognize new phishing techniques as they emerge, making them more effective than those traditional rule-based systems.
So it's helping us stay ahead of the curve when it comes to phishing attacks.
Exactly. AI is also playing a role in incident response. AI-powered tools can help security teams investigate incidents more quickly and more efficiently by automating tasks like data collection, log analysis, and malware identification. This allows security teams to contain the damage more effectively and minimize the impact of an attack.
So it sounds like AI is becoming like an indispensable tool in the fight against cybercrime.
It is. But it's important to remember that AI is not a silver bullet. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
All right, so while we're embracing the potential of AI to enhance our cybersecurity, we also need to be aware of the risks, right, and take steps to kind of mitigate them. What are some of those risks associated with using AI in cybersecurity?
One risk is that AI-powered security tools can be fooled by adversarial machine learning. This is where attackers deliberately craft inputs that cause the AI to make mistakes.
So basically, they're hacking the AI itself.
That's right. Another risk is that AI-powered security tools can be biased, just like any other machine learning model. This bias can lead to false positives, where legitimate activity is flagged as suspicious, or false negatives, where malicious activity goes undetected.
So we need to be aware of those limitations of AI and not just rely on it blindly. We
Yeah.
still need human oversight and expertise to make sure that AI is being used effectively and responsibly.
Absolutely. And we need to be mindful of those ethical implications of using AI in cybersecurity. For example, we need to make sure that AI-powered security tools aren't used to discriminate against certain groups of people or to violate their privacy.
Those are all important considerations. So while AI is a powerful tool in the fight against cybercrime, we need to use it wisely and responsibly. Okay, let's shift our focus now to a topic that's becoming increasingly important in today's world, and that's cloud security. As more and more businesses migrate their operations to the cloud, they're also exposing themselves to new security risks.
That's right. Cloud computing offers so many benefits, but it also presents unique security challenges. One of the biggest challenges is the shared responsibility model. So this means that the cloud provider is responsible for securing the underlying infrastructure, while the customer is responsible for securing their own data and applications.
So it's a shared responsibility, but ultimately the customer is still responsible for their own data.
Exactly. And this can be confusing for some customers who may assume that the cloud provider is taking care of all aspects of security.
So what are some of the key considerations for businesses when it comes to cloud security?
First and foremost, you need to choose a reputable cloud provider with a strong security track record. Look for providers that offer features like data encryption, access controls, and security monitoring.
So doing your due diligence,
Yeah.
researching those cloud providers, that's crucial.
Absolutely. You also need to implement strong security policies and procedures for your cloud environment. This includes things like setting up strong passwords, enabling multi-factor authentication, and implementing access controls to limit who can access sensitive data.
So basically the same security best practices that apply to our on-premise systems should also apply to the cloud.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that cloud security is an ongoing process. You need to continuously monitor your cloud environment for threats, update your security policies and procedures as needed, and stay informed about the latest cloud security best practices.
So cloud security really requires a proactive and vigilant approach, just like any other aspect of cybersecurity.
Exactly. And it's important to have a plan in place for what to do in case of a security breach. This includes things like having backups of your data, knowing how to contact your cloud provider's security team, and having a process for recovering from an attack.
So incident response planning is just as important for cloud security as it is for on-premise security.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from personal data privacy to the use of AI in cybersecurity and the challenges of cloud security. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
Yeah, I think the main takeaway is that cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. It's not just the job of IT professionals or security experts. We all have a role to play in protecting ourselves, our businesses, and our data.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And, the more we understand about the threats that we face and the steps that we can take to mitigate them, the better prepared we will be to navigate this world that we're living in.
I agree.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Let's wrap up our exploration of today's cybersecurity landscape.
It's been a whirlwind tour, hasn't it?
It really has. We've uncovered some unsettling trends, and we've delved into some pretty complex topics, from AI-driven attacks to the nuances of cloud security. But I think amidst all that, there's this message of empowerment. Knowledge is power, and by understanding these threats, we're better equipped to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. We've talked about the need for proactive vulnerability management and robust incident response plans and a multi-layered approach to security. And it can feel daunting, especially for small businesses with limited resources. But the good news is you don't have to go it alone.
That's where turnkey cybersecurity comes in, right?
Exactly. We're here to help small businesses navigate this complex landscape. Whether it's CMMC compliance, penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, or incident response, we tailor our services to fit your specific needs and your budget.
So for our listeners out there, remember, you don't have to be a cybersecurity expert to keep your business safe. You just need to be aware of the risks and be willing to take action.
Exactly. And having a trusted partner like Turnkey Cybersecurity by your side can make all the difference. We can provide that expert guidance and support, freeing you up to focus on what you do best.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question. Knowing what you know now, what's one action you can take this week to strengthen your cybersecurity posture?
That's a great question. It could be something as simple as reviewing your privacy settings on social media, enabling two-factor authentication on your important accounts, or even just having a conversation with your team about security best practices. Every step you take, no matter how small, contributes to a stronger security culture.
Well said. And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure of where to start, Turnkey Cybersecurity is here to help. We're passionate about empowering small businesses to thrive in the digital world, and that starts with a solid foundation of cybersecurity.
We're in this together.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you next time.